Hi, I'm Justin Boyd.
I am Brittany Pacheco.
I'm Oberyn Martell Joel Cooper.
Tristan Jones.
And we are the Watchers in the Basement.
Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement. We are here today to talk about the series premiere of the new HBO hit series. I say hit series, but I think it will be a hit. The Last of Us. The Last of Us is based on the critically acclaimed PlayStation video game series created by Naughty Dog Studios. And yeah, it's, we're living in a moment right now where there's a lot of video game adaptations. That's a tough word to say sometimes. There's a lot of stuff coming out right now. We had Uncharted this past year. There was a Halo series on Paramount Plus. You've got
Not
the Mario.
Good. Don't watch it.
I didn't watch that, but you got the Super Mario movie coming out in April, which I think will be a hit. God of War, that video game is Amazon's working on a God of War series. Twisted Metal with Anthony Mackie's coming out.
No way, Twisted Metal.
So video games are having a moment right now, and I think this is like the apex, the prestige of all these shows. And I want to start this off by talking to Tristan, because I think, Tristan, you're the only person who's played these games. Having watched the premiere episode now and having played the games, how faithful to the game or the games was the premiere in your mind? Or are there a lot of things that you noticed from the games that you saw in last night's episode?
So, for clarity, I've played maybe 10 minutes of the first game, but I played the second one, the entirety of the sequel game. So, from what I've read, the premiere was completely faithful to like the first 15 to 20 minutes of the first game, right? And I kind of started it, but I didn't really kind of follow through, and I kind of put it away. But originally, summer 2020, when my first time hearing about The Last of Us, I started with the sequel, and then I went and started to play the first one a little bit. But in the sequel, the opening, basically the before the 20 years later sequence of the premiere, there's a flashback in the sequel where you have to relive the opening part to the premiere, right? You're in Sarah's perspective. Joel is gone, and the outbreak's happening, and you actually, instead of like the dog does come to the window. You let the dog in, or either I think a zombie kills the dog or something like that. And then Sarah has to kind of like evade some zombies until Joel gets there and saves the day and saves her. And then you go through, same thing. You go through trying to get through the city. It's really I said it to say it's really nerve-wracking shit. And I had to relive that in the premiere. Like literally I had goosebumps. My heart was shaking. It was the same thing like I was holding a controller. So I said it to say that the premiere, from my perspective, was pretty faithful to the game. And it was a riveting an hour and a half, it seemed, of television for me.
Frank, do you have any background playing the game, or?
I don't know. I didn't. I mean, I remember when Tristan bought the game, and there were times when we needed to work out, and he was distracted with the game, and he wouldn't get off the goddamn controller. But that's probably my closest proximity to the game. I never played it before. Seen commercials. It looked entertaining, but I don't like games I have to work to beat. I just like playing exposition sports, football games and stuff. So
yeah, I'm kind of the same way as you. I keep track of video games. One of my brothers is a big gamer, and I think one of these games I got him for his birthday or Christmas one year. But these are like very popular games, and like these games have won like over 200 awards on the video game circuit. So this is high quality stuff. And Naughty Dog, the one that made this game, they also made the Uncharted series, which we saw the Tom Holland movie last year. And so their video games are very cinematic, and they're almost kind of made to be adapted to the screen. So
and real quick, like The Last of Us, the first one, both were actually nominated and won for not just like the cinematic part of it, but like best storytelling.
Right.
And I guess we'll talk about it later, but the storytelling element of this game is how I knew it would be a perfect adaptation, especially for HBO.
Yeah. So Frank, what are your first impressions being someone who's coming into this, pretty cold?
Well, the actors and actresses in the show, the Game of Thrones legends, in their own right, Pedro Pascal, and I don't know the little girl's name, but
Bella Ramsey.
Pedigree. Say it again.
Bella Ramsey.
Bella Ramsey. So just from the acting pedigree that they possess, I knew I was going to be a fan and like at least give it a shot. And I can see why people are very excited about it, based on the storytelling, the essence of what the show is going to portray throughout the season, throughout the series. And I get it for like premieres, you have to establish characters, you have to establish storylines. With all that being said, it was a very slow burn for me, especially when they're in present time and with Fedra and like the Fireflies, trying to establish characters in that format and like the back and forth within the confines of the compound. That was kind of slow for me. So for me, I'm just waiting for the monsters to show up and start wrecking shit. Parts of the episode was great, like the initial outbreak and like the escape and seeing some of the people get affected. That was fun. And I'm sure throughout the season we'll see more of that. It's just the episode as a whole for me was a slow burn.
Okay, Brittany, what are your first impressions or thoughts on the episode as a whole?
Well, first of all, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends in the live chat. We've got Trisha, aka the Texas Potterhead. She says she's very excited about us coming on here and covering The Last of Us, and is very much like straight out of the game. And Amber too. Amber says she can't stay, but she just wanted to come by, say hi, and give us a thumbs up. So please, everyone else who's watching the replay, give us a like on this video. We appreciate y'all being here. So like Frank, I'm coming into this cold. I don't do zombie anything, like TV shows, movies, video games, like the Resident Evil stuff, not my jam. Like it never has been, never will be. It's more John's, it's more to his liking. And surprisingly, he has not played The Last of Us, because I think because it's a PlayStation game and he's more like Xbox, that's like the reason for it. However, with Naughty Dog, the only thing I knew about Naughty Dog was Crash Bandicoot, which I used to play as a kid. And so that's like the one and only connection I have. But for what the premiere was, like Frank, I feel like it dragged. It was definitely a slow burn for me. The parts of it that were exciting, that really caught your attention, were done extremely well. I do very much enjoy the Game of Thrones casting with Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. It's kind of cool to see these actors who never once shared the screen on Game of Thrones, and now we see them together and just seeing what kind of chemistry that they have, if you will. And it's good. I mean, I think it's good so far. I think there's a spunkiness to Bella's character that kind of matches that of Pedro's character, so that's going to be fun to explore if I continue watching this show. But because of that whole zombie element, I'm not sure if I'm really going to actively watch the show, because at one point Luna lost her damn mind, and when Luna loses her mind, I'm going to lose my mind. So Luna said no, I said no as well. And so
for the viewers, listeners, Luna is your dog. So
Luna is my dog.
Corgi.
Yes, she is my 3-year-old corgi who was actively watching the show with me and John, and she saw the old lady, which Trisha so eloquently put, she was creepy as fuck. Yes. When that lady was activated, oh my God, Luna started barking, and I'm like, that's it, I'm done. Luna's out, I'm out. I'm done. So
let me be the first to say, if that old lady creeps you out,
it's time to get out.
Bro,
there's some shit here.
The whole on this season of,
man,
and seeing those other, creature. No, I don't want that cauliflower looking face. Like, I don't want to look at that. No, I don't need to see that. I'm good. Yeah. So this might be the one episode I will join y'all to discuss The Last of Us, but I cannot confidently say I'm going to continue watching the show. It's just not my jam. Some people are not into musicals. I'm not into zombies. That's just what it is.
Maybe a zombie musical. That's what you need, right?
Absolutely the fuck not.
Right.
Frank, what were you gonna say?
So I will say this: when some of the ladies got affected, the level of athleticism really went up there. And if they're gonna be like hurdling and bouncing off walls and running 4.40s, then I need more of that. That was pretty impressive.
I don't need that extra shit either. No, we're cool. Like, we're fine. Trisha says that the game is scary. One not to play in the dark. I hear you. Noted.
I play that shit from morning to like 3-4 o'clock in the morning.
It's a very popular game series. I mean, it's like the thing about PlayStation has a handful of games or more that are like exclusive, that are literally the reason why people buy the PlayStation. I mean, the PlayStation is obviously maybe the market leader anyway, and it's a cool PlayStation's always kind of been a cool looking device or system or whatever, but they have several games that are like The Last of Us, Uncharted, these new Spider-Man games, which are phenomenal. Like, honestly, if you haven't played Spider-Man 2018, you need to play that. If you like Spider-Man at all, or just superheroes, or the Miles Morales game, which was a sequel, that's a great game. And The Last of Us is certainly up there or above all these. So I went in this knowing I knew Joel, I knew Ellie, I knew the character names. Actually, I know the voice talent who plays them in the video game, because I think those actors are going to be in the show later on down in the season. And the guy who voices Joel, the actor's name is Troy Baker, and he's done a lot of he's been the Joker's voice on animated stuff and video games. He's done all kinds of video game stuff, and he actually hosts the official podcast on HBO for The Last of Us. And I would recommend, if you like this show, meaning The Last of Us, check out the official podcast. It's very in depth. It kind of I definitely got a lot out of listening to that about this episode, because again, I don't know much about the story. I know there's some kind of, I thought it was like a zombie alien thing, but actually it's a pandemic. It's a fungal outbreak that basically takes over ravages the world, and
little too close to home, don't you think?
Well, that gets me to a question I wanted to ask y'all before we kind of got into the show a whole lot. So we see in this show, it opens in Austin, Texas, 2003. What a time to be alive. I think I was actually in Austin around that time.
I was just going to ask you, were you
I think I was
in Austin during
I was
that
in 2002, I think. Summer of 2002. Yeah. Anyway, I like Austin. Anyway,
I was in middle school.
You're in middle school. Yeah, I'm a little bit older. So definitely wiser also. No. Anyway, so we open in Austin, Texas, 2003. Then we, this outbreak happens. We flash forward to 2023, right? 20 years later. My question for y'all is, had this outbreak happened in our world, would there be a world 20 years down the road? Because I don't think there would be. I'll go to Tristan first. Do you think, like what we see in The Last of Us, do you think there'd be that many people? And I don't even know how many people are honestly still around in this country or on the world, but I feel like this kind of thing would wipe out the whole world. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, but if let's pretend that there were the same amount of people that there are in, present day Last of Us, I think we'd see the same type of world. I think we still see this dystopian just environment where, groups are fighting for control, factions are warring over like the scraps of resources that we have. Like, this is kind of, I think Walking Dead and Uncharted and all these different shows, these games and shows and movies are trying to warn us of what mankind kind of will look like if we don't kind of fix these fundamental issues of like climate change and poverty and so on. because once it's all gone, then it's like who's going to be the king of the ashes, right? It's, famous Littlefinger line. So yeah, I don't think that in real life we would be even as prosperous as we'll see on the show. Like, I think cynical me always believes that mankind is just born to kill itself off. And as you can see, we're doing a great job with that ourselves. So,
Well, which
yeah.
philosopher said that man would return to its natural state? Was it Rousseau? There's a philosopher out there back in the day that basically said that, you know, we eventually will go, like, nature would eventually go back to its original state. If that means taking us all out, fungus or otherwise, it's going to return to its natural state.
And everything around us is working towards that, right? The environment, like everything, like just running out of resources. We start with the animals, and animals, we keep noticing like more and more animals just extinct every month. Like a new animal is extinct, right? There's this new hurricanes, new all these different things, right? And then there's the things that we can control, like fighting global warming and stuff like that. And the show nods the whole opening of this, right, with two professors on the show is a warning, you know, just like don't look up, or well, shit, don't look up now, whatever.
Don't look up.
Again, these are warning shows of, like, you know, it might be satire and this may be kind of, you know, sci-fi genre, you know, with zombies and shit, but these are warnings of things that can actually happen, that could legitimately happen, right? The science that he was saying was not fiction. So
right,
yeah, it's of course it's fantasy, it's not reality, but it's not that far off, in my opinion.
Yeah, Frank, what do you think? Would a fungal outbreak, would that wipe us out, or would we still? I mean, would the Chiefs be in the playoffs in 2023 if that happened in 2003, or what's
still in the AFC title game?
Yeah, man. I could definitely see Tristan's depiction. I could definitely see that, because I don't trust mankind either. Another route I could see is a oligarchy, so kind of like Hunger Games, like a finite amount of billionaires or people who have the abundance of influence, of resources, money, control, pretty much fencing off everybody else and having them fight for themselves, and the elitists of the world pretty much bordering off sections of the world just for them. I can definitely see that as well. Having the earth, you know, broken down in districts or colonies, and pretty much the middle class and lower class are just fighting for survival, while the rich are just, you know, thriving because of their influence. Now, I don't think their money will be much influence in 20 years, but their resources will be of influence. Land, you know, to grow food, oil, things of that nature. So I could definitely see that in 20 years, because we're very destructive, and the earth is just accelerating to another cataclysmic disaster that's going to happen. I think the scientists have said there's been over 500,000 cataclysmic disasters where the earth cleanses itself. I could definitely see that happening with a fungal infestation or a pandemic of that kind.
Yeah, and you know, this part of the show is, you know, I know we talked a little bit about how, like, you know, okay, some of y'all thought the episode was a little bit too long. It's an 80-minute premiere episode, which I understand. I get that's a long time, but I think the show does a good job of showing us this world. And I think it conversely does a great job of also not throwing a whole lot of lore and stuff at us. You know, like we only saw a couple of the what are we calling them? It's like cordyceps. Is that what the infected people call it? Cordyceps, Tristan?
I don't remember them calling them that in the sequel game.
Okay.
So I don't know that
right.
Even after the second watch, I was like, cordyceps. I don't recall. So
let's just call them the infected.
Right. We don't see a ton of that. We were introduced obviously to the main characters, Joel, played by Pedro Pascal, and we're introduced to Ellie late in the episode, played by Bella Ramsey. And I think they do a great job of just setting the table, like I think if they had thrown a bunch at us, I think I might not have been interested in continue to watch the show. But because it's like, I like that it's a slower pace because it's setting up this thing, which I think is a cool idea. I think the idea of, the world, drastically changing and these people literally trying to survive and having to travel across the country and maybe around the world. I think that's a very interesting take. And the fact that, Pedro Pascal is Joel is, he's in charge of safely transporting this girl who apparently is special in some way, which I have no idea how she's special. And we can talk about that, but I think that's very interesting. It's also very similar to The Mandalorian.
Oh no, there's gonna be side quests. God.
Yeah, which, note as we're recording this tonight during the super wild card weekend finale, which the NFL, like, it's the playoffs, man, like super wild card weekend, whatever. Anyway, during tonight's football game, they're gonna have the trailer for season 3 of The Mandalorian, so which starts in March. So as this series is ending, another Pedro Pascal vehicle is taking off, and so I guess he's just gonna dominate 2023. But
him, Jonathan Majors, let's go.
Oh, you're right. They are honestly like neck and neck for who's going to control 2023. That's very cool. Yeah,
I'm here for it.
But no, I like the pacing of it so far. I think the acting is phenomenal. And let's get into that. Brittany, what do you think of the cast so far? And let's just focus on the people that we saw in this episode. There were only about 5 or 6 people in the cast, but what do you think of the cast so far?
I mean, casting, I think, was well done. We've already talked a little bit about, GOT alums, Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, and to see that they're, they never shared a screen on Game of Thrones, yet they're sharing time, of course, on this show. By the way, the opening titles, like, do they get the same people who do the Game of Thrones, House of Dragon opening titles? Because that was a vibe right there. That gave me total Game of Thrones vibes, as Trisha said here in the chat. She loved it. I loved it. I thought it was cool looking. But anyway, that's a sidebar. The other minor characters that we got to meet in this episode, one working with Joel's character, the other person who was actually the voice character of her same character from the video game. Was it not Marcella? That's her friend in the chat, Marlene.
Marlene, yeah.
She gets to reprise her role as her own, voice character. And then also, I guess he's the brother to Joel, and that is Gabriel Luna's character. His name is Tony. Is his name Tony?
Tommy.
Yeah, Tommy. So yeah, very few characters like that really you kind of focus on. The neighbors, the elderly neighbors to Joel and his daughter Sarah, which how the hell did I forget to mention her? Phenomenal performance from this young lady that sadly, we lost her too soon. But her story sets the tone, obviously, for what Joel is going to be doing for the rest of this show, right? And you see the parallels, of course, that he experiences with losing his daughter in the beginning of the episode, and then what he's forced to do in order to protect Bella Ramsey's character, because he's charged with taking her across country to keep her safe because she's special somehow. I mean, one can, pretty much determine why she's special to this whole cause. But I think the acting, especially from Nico Parker, was incredibly well done. And you feel her fear and not understanding, as a young woman, like what's going on around her and why is everything shutting down so quickly and what's happening with her neighbors and why is the dog freaking out. By the way, we need to protect all the animals at all cost. We don't need to see, Frank knows what I'm talking about. What happened to Luan's dog in Gangs of London. Yeah, we don't need to see that, but tragic is the word. Overall, I think casting and the acting was extremely well done. There's definitely just low points that kind of dragged, but I think the way that you talked about it, Justin, with developing the story and really kind of like laying it down for us without getting too in depth, was well done. So the storytelling, I think, could use a little bit of work, but overall, I mean, I have an understanding of what's happening in this era.
Yeah, and I want to touch on some of the characters you mentioned. Sarah, which you said was played by Nico Parker, which is Thandie Newton's daughter, which she looks just like
Mini
her.
me.
Which Thandie Newton, if you're not familiar with her, she was in Westworld, another HBO show, and she was also in Solo, the Han Solo movie, which I liked. A lot of people didn't, but I thought it was pretty good. What I want to talk about with that character is she's kind of the point of view character, Tristan, as you said, like in the start of the first video game, but also in this show. And I mean, I kind of thought she was going to die because I know that Joel and Ellie have to make this journey. And I knew that, like, obviously Joel has to experience some kind of loss, but I don't know that. I think there were some people that sat down to watch this show last night and they watched the first 10 minutes and they're like, oh, this Sarah she's like one of the main characters. And then, like, fast forward 10, 12 minutes later and she gets shot. Just kind of walk us through, like,
she got the Ned Stark treatment. Good God.
Yeah, it is a kind of a Ned Stark treatment because I haven't played the game in almost 3 years now. And again, in the sequel game, because it's a narrative driven game, you know, Joel and Ellie would have some type of conversation and it would, you know, lead to this flashback of when the outbreak first happened. So you're in Sarah's perspective. So I had forgotten that. It's like somewhere I don't even know what the middle to get. That game is super long. That game,
it's a long game, yeah.
It took me about two and a half months to finish. And so I had forgotten about that opening sequence that I had to actually go through and play it and beat it to get back to the original, the plot line of the sequel game. So, you know, my wife leans over, she asked me, she was like, do we know that she died in the game? And I couldn't remember. I was like, no, I don't remember. So about halfway through the opening sequence, I'm like, oh, things start, you know, coming back. I was like, oh, I remember that particular scene from playing it. And then the hurt came back. I was like, oh shit. I know how this ends, right? So for me, playing that game was just reliving that same cathartic experience it is of seeing really with Joel. The reason why we think Sarah's the protagonist is because she kind of runs Joel's life. Yeah. Right. She keeps him in line. She holds him accountable for, you know, celebrating things outside himself. Like, because in the character development we see of Joel in the opening sequence, we know that he's a single parent. We know that he's a combat veteran, right? So we know, like, his mentality is just like, all I care about is the mission, right? What's in front of me? I have to protect my daughter. I have to make sure we have a place to, you know, eat, roof over our heads, so on and so forth. So Sarah was the one who kind of grounded him in his humanity. And, you know, going through that sequence and seeing the destruction of that reality that they had known for, you know, their entire lives just kind of go up in smoke. And we're really watching this kind of like the death of Joel's humanity. And that's something that we have to see him kind of work to get back through his relationship with Ellie. But it was just gut wrenching going through it again and really kind of falling in love with Sarah as a character so quickly again, knowing that her fate was going to be really quickly, you know, real quick. But also knowing the impact it was going to have on Joel going forward.
Yeah. Frank, were you surprised when Sarah died in the first 10 or 15 minutes?
I wasn't, only because I saw the previews and she was nowhere in those previews. It was Ellie and Joel in those previews. And even knowing that, and this is just great acting, even knowing that she wasn't going to be around in those 15 minutes, I got so invested in that character. Like, if I had a daughter, that's how I want my daughter to be. Like, just very loving, compassionate, caring, selfless. just very well rounded. And I told myself, do not get committed to this character because she's not going to survive this shit. And I still did, and this shit fucking sucks. But no, it's like Brittany, like I think Brittany said, it's a great cast. Like, I mean, Gabriel Luna, who plays Uncle Tommy, he was Ghost Rider in season 4 and 5 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, he's a great actor.
Shit.
It's Gabriel Luna. Yeah, it just has long hair in this series, and I mean, it's a wonderful cast, and I mean, I look forward to what they have to offer. But I didn't play the video game. It sounds very somber and sounds emotionally just distraught. So I can imagine playing that and seeing her pass away in the video game, or her not being around can be such a negative impact.
And on that note of her passing, Frank, I saw a comparison video of the show adaptation and then the actual video game adaptation, and it's spot on, like frame for frame. Like, they were true,
even down to like the shirt she's wearing. It's the same, whatever the shirt is, it's the same shirt. Yeah,
like the arm motions and like just how she was kind of like clinging on to her dad. Like, it was uncannily spot on.
The house is strikingly similar to the game. Like, that's what caught me. That's what kind of activated my memories of that sequence of the game. It was the house. It was like, shit. Like, I remember just how the stairs, because you have to go upstairs and get the watch out of the drawer. You have to go to this room and check his room. Because you start off with Sarah waking up, and she goes across, she checks Joel's room. He's not there. She goes downstairs. She's hearing the boom. She's hearing gunshots and all these things. The dog goes up to that very same window and starts scratching on the door. Like, you have to relive these things, and it activated immediately because of how just well they staged the setting, like the house, everything. So
yeah, the attention to detail in this game, or in this series, is
amazing.
Pretty well done. What the Sarah character kind of reminds me of on a smaller level, and definitely a shorter stint on the show, is, y'all remember Huey's girlfriend, the first episode of The Boys?
Mm-hmm.
How like this actress is like, she's so good, like in the 2 minutes she's on screen, you're like, okay, this is definitely a character that's gonna be on the show. And then like 5 minutes later, A-Train literally runs through her. Spoilers for those who haven't seen The Boys season 1, but to me it's the same thing. I was like, oh man, like this actress is great. This is a good character. And then like we lose the character right away. And it's like, it sets Joel on this path of, then we see later on, whenever they burn this, or this kid comes in, and obviously he's been infected.
I called it.
They shoot him up with something and basically euthanize him. And then Joel is the one who, someone comes up to him and says, I can't, it's a kid. I can't do it. He just goes up there, picks up the kid's dead body and throws it in the pile that's going to be burned. And you see like how he goes from this like loving father to where 20 years later, it's like, that's just a way to earn
body.
That's just a way to earn a living, is by collecting the dead bodies and burning them. It's like, and like, also you see how Pedro Pascal, how he ages from 2003 to 2023. And it's like, he really does look like the character in the game.
Yeah.
Especially what I've seen like on the cover and whatever. It's like, they did a great job with that detail also. I think that's phenomenal.
Yeah, because I think in 2003 he was turning 36.
36, yeah.
And so 20 years later, now he's 56. It's crazy. Yeah. Frank, you look like you were about to say something.
No, I was just gonna add my 2 cents on that. Is that I can imagine, like, losing a child is devastating. I mean, it just totally sucks. And to be an actor and to portray that in a film or in a show is even tougher. The guy who plays Stannis Baratheon, he did an interview years ago for I think it was Vogue. I can't remember the magazine, but he had lost a niece way back when in a fire. So, and then like and
they burned his on-screen daughter.
Yeah. So it triggered him, and it took months to get out of that trauma because of what he went through as an uncle, losing his niece. I'm like, fuck, like that. I can imagine trying to recreate that for film, for entertainment and be okay. So you've seen that scene and like and seeing Joel just dump the body like emotionless, like how many kids you have to throw away to the side or burn up to get to that point of like almost it becoming customary at that point and not feeling anymore. That triggered me to seeing that scene because that's it's always tough to see kids die, and it's always tough to see because children are blameless, and to see that happen in the show is always tough to watch for sure. So.
But I wonder, because obviously we know nothing about this child that came to Boston, which is now where Joel's living,
Right.
making a living. You see like these cement walls surrounding what is formerly known as Boston, and there's like a quarantine zone, what have you. So it's like, where did this child come from? Because it looked like he had like a little patch or something. And is it from the same facility that perhaps Ellie is from? Because there was talk about where she was prior to when we first meet her, and that's in chains in a room. So Tristan, I don't know if that's something that you can shed some light on, but like it seems like there's a facility out there that's testing on kids and or people.
Yeah, I mean, this may or may not be a spoiler for like later on in the season, but in the sequel game, it do take you back to a flashback of when Ellie was taken from a particular facility, or because you do have to go back to that same facility in the sequel game, and it triggers a flashback to her. I don't know, that's going to lead to a spoiler, but like, yeah, I'll say that there's a facility.
Okay. Because it sounds like there's a lot of talk about a facility and then like the quote unquote terrorist group, the Fireflies. And it's like, you're still trying to learn everything about this world, but it just curiosity for me was like, where the hell did this kid come from? Did the kid escape, or I don't know. Anyway, it was a sad ordeal, but I had called it like as soon as I saw the kid go into the quarantine and the red, he was tested and the red light showed. I was like, oh shit, this is not good.
Yeah, we'll probably see that. We'll probably find that out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the federal rules of that compound in Boston? Did y'all see those rules? Mm-hmm. How dire and how serious they were? Like if you like leave on the unauthorized quarantine zone, it's automatic death. Like, I think you get hung if you miss curfew. It was like these are like some serious dystopian type of like rules going on here.
Yeah. Exactly. I want to read something Marcy said in the chat. She goes, I found it crazy that they've been in that new dystopian world for 20 years and people are still having kids. I feel like I definitely wouldn't want to bring kids into that type of world. Girl, I agree.
No, I thought the same thing last night. I was like, why are there still kids, period? Like, this is like crazy. I mean, like I was saying, if this happened in our world, we wouldn't make it to 2004, much less to 2023. I don't believe, I think the whole world would just, would eat itself or whatever. Yeah. Like, there'd be like one zombie to rule them all, like in Zack Snyder's famous the one in Las Vegas, whatever that was called, Army of the Dead.
Army of the Dead.
Yeah.
Oh God.
The one zombie with the helmet, the only one that knew to cover his head. Yeah.
Which we also covered.
We did
here on the Watchers in the Basement.
Was a big hit. Out. Yeah. So check it out if you have it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But people be fucking, man.
What's that?
People be fucking, and especially when they believe imminent death. It's approaching, like people be fucking, and yeah, you just kind of throw caution to the wind.
I think that's episode 2. That's the title. I think so. Go ahead.
So yeah, I used to ask the same thing, like why bring kids into this particular situation until you realize like that feeling of being on edge all the time of feeling like every day is survive or die. It gets the blood flowing, and it leads to carnal desires. I would imagine, like, yeah.
You know what gets the blood flowing? Volcanoes. And Marcy said she would chuck herself into one. Peace out, zombies. Listen, I'm right behind you. No, see, the thing is, when we talked earlier about factions and like this dystopian type of way of living, Hunger Games, Divergent, The Handmaid's Tale. All of those shows, movies have the similar organization of there's a small group of people who call the shots and like everyone else has to like fight each other in order to survive.
Yeah,
And
it's called the real world.
I know, right? I know. But like with the hangings of, people who try to escape the quarantine or enter into a quarantine and you get, hung for it. I was like, oh my God, this is Handmaid's Tale for, various reasons. You just look at someone the wrong way and boom, okay, we're going to hang you now. Or you get, shot, execution style. It's nuts. But yeah, more so to the point, don't bring kids into this world. Let's just not.
Yeah.
But it also goes back to my point too of like history. Like when you have empires and like unruly dictators and like just very dangerous rules put in place, it's automatic and natural that resistance is gonna resist that. People are gonna fight back, and it gets to a point where people backs against the wall and they have nothing to lose. You see it in Star Wars, you saw it in Game of Thrones, you see it in every single empire faction that's put in place that's unruly. People are gonna fight back, and in this case, the Fireflies. I want to see where this goes because a lot of times empires coming from within because you have infighting going on too. With these type of empires and factions that are going on.
I think what you will definitely see throughout this season, throughout this show, and with anybody who's played the game, will tell you kind of chillingly, like myself, is that the scariest parts of the game, like there's zombies and they call it something, I forgot what they call it in the game. There's zombies, of course. There's even like the super zombies that we will see, which are super scary. Oh my God, like nightmares, scary. But the scariest parts of this game are the people, right? By far, like it's the cruelty of the people, and like those rules reflect that. Like anytime society falls, like something has to take its place. Right? Any type of regime, like people can't. I think what the show is kind of, and what the show is trying to tell us is that people cannot live with just letting people have like their own individual freedoms and stuff like that. Somebody has to be on top, right? And that's where we'll see like these different factions competing against each other. Because like you stop and ask yourself, what are we really fighting over? There's not that many resources. Like the population is not growing. There's no central economy to where people can get rich from it, right? There's no luxuries. So what are you fighting over? And it's control, right? And anytime we have control and we have this lawless environment, you're going to have severe oppression. And that's, what we see here.
Yeah. Well said.
It's kind of speaking of what we were talking about a little bit before, as far as like companionship, it looks like Joel has somebody new in his life. This character Tess. Tristan, how involved is Tess in the sequel game, or does she not make it to the first one?
Tess, I believe, is in the sequel game.
Okay.
Yes.
It seems like she's gonna be pretty pivotal. She's at least in the show, at least the first few episodes, maybe the first season. And by the way, the show, so the first season is going to be 9 episodes, and by all accounts, it sounds like this is going to be a 2-season show because the first season is supposedly going to be the first game, and the second season will be the second game. So I think that if that turns out to be true, that's very cool because you're telling us like, we know where the end zone is, right? Like we know where the end goal is. And if they're going to give us like 18 to 20 episodes of this like well-told, plotted out story, I think it could be one of the best TV series ever. You know what I mean? Like if the end is in sight and you know what you're going to do, you have this great like resource of this video game to adapt and bring to the screen. I think that'll make this special. If they say from the jump, like we're giving you 2 years of great TV. I think that's unique. Pretty cool, honestly.
I'm going to make a prediction. If this gets all the way to the end of season 2, then there'll probably be a season 3 because the way that the second game ends,
right,
kind of leads to, at least there'll be a ton of speculation over whether there'll be a season 3.
And Neil Druckmann, who is one of the co-executive producers on the show, he wrote the game, is like the co-president of Naughty Dog. He said in the past that like he does have some more story to tell, so there could be a third game. Now, are we going to get into like a Game of Thrones kind of situation where the third game is not out yet, and thus the third season would be held up, much like how George R.R. Martin won't finish his book series, and so the showrunners of Game of Thrones just had to go their own way and do the best they could. So I don't think that'll happen with this series, but it's interesting to see how that'll play out, because The Last of Us 2, it just came out like 2019, 2020? It's
2020.
Yeah, 2020. So the first game came out in 2013. They've remastered it and remade it. Like now, if you have a PS5, you can get the PS5 version. But the first one was on PS3. The second one is a PS4 game. And there's been like downloadable content where you can play like extra missions or whatever, which makes it feel like it's more than just two games. But it's basically just two games. So to me, that's interesting. If it is just going to be one season per game.
But that one game is literally equivalent to a season of television.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay then. All right.
Yeah.
Good to know. So I don't watch. I don't know. I'll give it a fair. I'll give it a fair chance.
Yeah.
But just understand, I don't do zombies.
Again, there'll be a lot of parts that creep you out, but the storytelling, the character development, I think you'll love. The cinematic part of it, I think you'll love.
Don't doubt it. But yeah, the little bits of the scary folk.
That I will not doubt. I can't doubt you on that. It's going to be creepy as hell.
Like I said, when Luna saw the old lady and the tentacle things were coming out of her mouth and Luna starts bark, 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 she's like, nah, we're done. I'm like, okay, I'm done too. So remember notes itself. Don't bring old ladies around Luna.
There you go. No, I think like coming out of this episode, I have a lot of questions for episode 2, and not that we can. I mean, Tristan probably can answer some of them, but we're not gonna try to spoil anything. But like I want to know, like, why is Ellie special? We see she has a bite mark. She tests positive in that scene at the end when the guard stops them as they're trying to flee, and then we see, which it's the same guard that early in the episode Joel is, he's like basically selling drugs to, or he's trying to make enough money so he can buy a car battery or a battery for a truck that he can basically, put in the truck, and then him and Tess or whoever can escape Boston. And
because it sounded like he was trying to find his brother, whom he hadn't heard from in weeks.
Another question is what happened to Tommy? Like, it seems like they had a falling out, which, by what happens in 2003 when it all goes down and they're in town and planes are crashing and people are losing their minds and there's explosions and stuff. The fact that Tommy makes it to 2023 is shocking to me. I mean, if he wasn't played by like a name actor like Gabriel Luna, he wouldn't have made it, right? So I'm interested to see like what happens between those characters, because they have some kind of a falling out. Although obviously, Joel still cares about his brother, and he's trying to get to his brother who's been missing for a few weeks in 2023. So yeah, that's a question I have. Like, I'm interested to see what happens. I mean, is there anything, Frank? Is there anything that you're, after watching the first episode, that you're like, I need to know? Like, if I'm going to continue to watch this, I need to know this happens or whatever.
I just have so many questions. Like, why the fuck is he in Wyoming and you're in Massachusetts? That's a long drive on a regular day in a zombie infested dystopian world. And then, bro, you need a battery, nigga. What about gas, nigga? That's like a 20-hour drive. How you gonna get there with no gas stations? Are there other settlements that has like supplies that you can go barter with? Like, that sounds like a suicide mission to me.
I bet they load up on the gas. I bet like they have just like,
that's dangerous in itself.
Well, yeah,
and
but I mean,
you're driving through terrain. There are no clear highways in this point of in this world. Like,
no,
you're probably driving
there
through
still
terrain.
are, right? There's probably still highways.
I don't know. 20 years later, monsters all over the place.
There's
got to be something.
the game is very realistic in its imagination of a zombie apocalypse, basically, where everything shuts down and these grass overtakes a lot of highways. So in the game, yeah, you have some highways,
Yeah.
but they only go up to a certain amount, and then you have to drive around and then this big ridge in the ground, what I'm saying, in the middle of a city, because it's imagining all these things. So yeah, it doesn't have it doesn't look like present day Houston,
Right.
as far as freeways, but they're very realistic in that sense. I will say you do find out like how these different resources are acquired, because really a big part of the game is acquiring resources, right? Which is why the show makes so much of a pain to like zoom in on, Joel saying, "Hey, I need that Ziploc bag back," right? That's a staple of the game. It's like every little resource matters. You have to hoard every single resource that you possibly can because they all come in handy, right?
Right.
Ellie, when she is in the room and she notices the book, and she immediately starts to start cracking the code. That is a staple of the game. So you'll see how all these things are acquired. I do have a question.
Okay.
Some of the questions that you all have, about the show going forward, are these things that you want to know, or these are just things that we're curious about? Because I could tell you why Ellie is special. If we
I think I know.
I think I know. It's one of those, just they're what do you calling it? Just laying the foundation, but it's pretty telling. I mean, you see one zombie movie show, you kind of can figure out there's always one special person who can save the day, kind of thing. No, I don't want to know per se. It's just like open-ended question to have engagement, that kind of thing.
I want to know.
And we'll also find out why Joel and Tommy fall out, have a fall.
Yeah.
Right?
So to go back to what Tristan was talking about in the sense of the importance of resources, and in the game acquiring those resources and things like that. So basically what you're telling me, Tristan, much like The Mandalorian, is we're getting side quests during this show starring Pedro Pascal. So it's not just going to be a linear kind of thing. No, we're going to deviate. We're going to side quest.
Yeah, the sequel game does a great job, amazing job of every little important detail in the storyline in the sequel game. They give you context for it from the first game, right? So I didn't have to play the first game to understand everything that happened leading up to the sequel game. So I think we'll see a lot of that in this series, in this season, of just flashbacks to like different parts. And I've read about this too, like they're going to do it, but different parts of their lives and how they play a part in who they are in present day.
That makes sense. Well, I like what Marcy had to say here about why Tommy's in Wyoming, and it's because he's checking on John Dunn to see if he's okay. Great tie-in. Y'all be sure to check out our Yellowstone and 1923 podcasts, y'all. Right now they're on temporary hiatus, but you have plenty of time to catch up.
When are those shows coming back?
23 and February 5th. Is when that coming back.
And Yellowstone's in September.
Was September for Yellowstone?
I heard September for Yellowstone.
Wow.
And that's because I don't watch the show.
That was like summertime.
I thought it was like early summer, like
maybe it's earlier. Maybe
summer meant September, so maybe
so. Anyway,
but it's still the same season. They're just taking that big of a break.
Yes.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 16 episodes.
That's crazy.
They're supposed to kind of explain, I guess, in the show why there was such a long wait. I don't know. We'll see.
Interesting.
We'll see. But anyway. Back to Last of Us.
Yeah, the one thing I tell about this show, and I know this from the second game, is I know music is a big part of this show. Like I know Joel plays guitar. There's a Pearl Jam song I know that we're probably going to see at some point or hear. I think like all the stuff that I knew going into this show, which I said wasn't a whole lot, but just the peripheral kind of stuff. It seems like all of that stuff they've got in this show, and I think it's one of those things where if you watch this show and if you follow and pay attention to details, you're going to be rewarded because you're going to see little things that like, oh, I noticed that in the first episode, and here we are in like episode 5, and oh, they're bringing it back, and
Look, that Ziploc bag.
yeah, well, I think it's just smart storytelling, which we don't always get with the movies and shows that we talk about. You know, like sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But I think this show, I think it's like carefully like manicured to where you're going to get the payoffs for all this stuff because, like I said, they have a limited like runway. You know, if they're just going to do 2 seasons, they're going to put everything in these episodes. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it, and a lot of critics have already seen all 9 episodes are available for like critics to review, and several of them have watched the whole season. Some have only watched a few, but like the reviews are like glowing. And the reason why I ask about Yellowstone being off is because like right now, besides like the NFL playoffs or whatever, there's not a whole lot going on entertainment wise. I guess except for Avatar. Avatar is just crushing. Avatar 2 is like already to 2 billion for some odd reason. But like I think if The Last of Us is as good as like I think it is, and I think what Tristan thinks, this could like be like a culturally dominant thing until March or until like Ant-Man comes out or until the next Pedro Pascal thing, Mandalorian comes out. So I think it's this could be a Game of Thrones kind of show is what I'm trying to say basically.
Like I said one of these weeks, this show was either going to be a massive hit or it's going to be a massive disappointment because of the hype and everything. But I had full confidence in it because everything that you're supposed to feel in a great television show, right? Like the attachment to characters. Oh my God, please don't attach yourself to anybody.
This is seriously Game of Thrones all over again. My God.
But that's what really got me into it because I don't do zombie shows either. Right. I watched The Walking Dead up to a certain point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I naturally like sports games, honestly. We got a PlayStation so we can get it was during the pandemic, and we figured, hey, I'll start playing NBA 2K again, right? I'll start playing Call of Duty. I bought all the Call of Duty games, and that's really the only thing I played PlayStation for. And once I beat all the Call of Duty games and everything, it was like, okay, what next? And I saw a commercial for it. We were just looking up like what are the top selling PlayStation games? Last of Us popped up in every single list.
Yeah. Right.
And I started reading about it, and it wasn't just about like the action. The thing I read the most about was the storytelling. Right. So the same feelings that I'm supposed to feel in a great television show, you feel in the game. You feel when somebody dies on that game, you feel it because you feel like you spent time with this person over the course of a season. And it's like, no, this is a video game I've only been playing for a month. But like, no, that's the point. Right. Because you can't play it all in one day. You play some, you pick up the next day or you pick it up the next week. And it's just like a television season. So, yeah, it has all those same elements. And that's what made it. That's what's going to make it great for everybody, right? If you love storytelling, you can get around the zombies. I think the zombies are going to be like a semi-small part of the journey of this season. What we're going to see is like how these characters interact with each other and how just humankind has devolved in a certain point and how it turns against each other. So I think, again, people are going to love this season.
Yeah. You might have just sold me on this show. God damn it.
Well, I think kind of like piggybacking off what you said, I think that like how some people say, oh, Game of Thrones has dragons. It's like, well, yeah, there's dragons there, but like it's about people and it's about like control and power and stuff like that. This show is probably similar where, yeah, there's zombies, but like they're not like it's not the sole focus of the story. I mean, you're following these people as they maneuver their way through this dystopian world. So I think that's what is a reason to keep watching for people like Brittany, who I think you're ready to bail already. And
well, I just the little scary bits are scary. I don't like horror, and I don't like zombies, and I don't like seeing doggies potentially being killed by zombie-like creatures. Come on, no.
That dog survived.
That dog better have survived.
Well, then call your fucking senators and tell them that the world is fucking warming at a pace that means that we're going to have way more viruses and way more fungi.
Yep.
Listen, I got a lot to worry about just being a woman, okay, and living in Texas. My God. Yes, I know. Okay. I've got the Handmaid's Tale in one corner. Now I got to worry about this shit. Okay. I got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Did y'all notice how the one of the scientists at the beginning talking about the fungus was the guy from Spartacus?
John
Oh, yeah.
Hannah.
Yeah.
Mhm. I still see him as the brother from The Mummy. Like, I can't take him serious, you know. He's just an idiot. But yeah, no, John Hannah had a very convincing monologue, you know.
Yeah. Which was not in the game. That was a HBO creation. By the
Worked.
way, I wanted to point out that the show, one of the creators of the show is Craig Mazin, who did Chernobyl. So I don't know if y'all watched Chernobyl, but it was a big hit on
Limited
HBO also.
series.
So yeah, so I mean, it looks like I said, I think this is like the apex of video game adaptations. And
Same. Should we rank HBO top HBO monologues? Like at some point, like that.
We'll have to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, something else. The reason why I knew the show was going to be a hit, or I think it will be a hit, is because it got that Sunday spot on HBO. Like whenever they put something that 8 p.m. spot on Sunday nights, like they think that this is really fucking good. So we want everyone to see this, and this is the showcase show for a while now, or it will be.
The amount of money they spent on each episode.
Yep.
Lets you know that this is premiere.
Yeah. And, you know, earlier you were talking about video game sales and stuff. And I don't know that everyone, you know, realizes this, but like a hit video game, like is more profitable than a hit movie. Like it, cause you know, video games, like they, you know, think about them. They cost $60-$70 a pop. And all the games you mentioned, 2K, Madden, Call of Duty, these games literally year after year, they generate, you know, hundreds of millions to billions for Madden sometimes. So, yeah, like, and so, you know, this is a thing where, you know, to like our parents or whatever, like they're like, oh, it's a video game. Like, who cares about that? But like to people our age and younger, video games are huge. Like, and this is obviously showing it, like how you can take a video game and make it more than just a game. So I don't know. I'm excited. I really enjoyed the first episode. I thought it was fantastic. Yeah.
I loved every minute. I can understand like feeling like it dragged, especially during like the federal parts, you know. But there's a lot of information that the show is gonna have to like filter in over the course of some episodes.
Yeah,
you know, a lot of backstories. Like I said, we're gonna get a lot of flashbacks to kind of help with, you know, the explanatory parts of the show. But I loved it. It, you know, the premiere lived up to it for me. Especially their opening scene alone, the opening sequence. So I can't wait for next Sunday.
Yep. Frank, any final thoughts on The Last of Us series premiere?
Show the zombies, man. I want to see these athletic motherfuckers kill motherfuckers, man, and go in. I'm in for the action.
You'll get your wish.
The story is just a bonus for me, but I want to see more action. I want to see more suspense, drama. That's what I'm here for.
Fair enough. Okay, Brittany, final thoughts?
You know, I'll give it another episode. I'll give it another episode to progress with the storyline, see where it goes. Tristan, you've convinced me with your eloquence and, you know, charisma and whatnot. So I'll give it another honest shot. But the minute I see the zombies, I'm bailing. Like, nope, can't do that. If Luna starts barking again, I'm out. I gotta listen. I gotta listen to baby girl.
Like,
no,
I gotta.
No, I am her person. She is there to protect me. No, that's for me. No, she is there to protect me, and she will protect me from anything real or on the television, and I appreciate that.
Fair enough. So now you've heard what we think of the first episode of The Last of Us. We want to know what you think out there. Brittany, how can people let us know?
Join us for our live chats that it will be weekly for The Last of Us. Be sure to follow us here on YouTube. That is The Watchers in the Basement. Don't forget to like this video. It helps out the algorithm. And don't forget to let us know in the live chat your comments, as well as in the comments section. If you're watching the replay, we'd really appreciate it. But you can also follow The Watchers in the Basement on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Simply search at Watchers Basement. Use that same hashtag to help grow our audience. Tag us in articles, memes, etc. You get the point. Let us know what you want us to review. And lastly, you can also listen to our audio podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, thanks to anchor.fm. Be sure to give us a 5-star rating.
Thank you, Brittany. Appreciate it. So for Brittany, for Frank, for Tristan, I'm Justin. We'll see you next week when we review episode 2 of The Last of Us. Good night.